The cold winds of Threx Prime moved like whispering ghosts across the mountains. The alien woman named Lyra Toffin pulled her thick coat closer and looked down from the high ridge. Below her, the silver tents of her tribe glowed faintly in the pale morning light. The mountains were endless, sharp like teeth, and the snow never stopped falling. Life here was hard, but her people had survived for centuries. They called themselves the Vyari, and they were known for their pride and for their fear of one ancient legend, the humans. In every school and archive of the Vyari, humans were mentioned only as a warning. They were said to be long gone, erased by their own wars, a species that had once ruled the stars and then vanished. Old pictures still existed, but no one believed them anymore. Children called them ghost stories. Adults called them myths. Even Lyra herself used to laugh at the idea of Deathworlders, the strange name that ancient records had given humans. Lyra worked as a scout for the camp. She was brave and curious, sometimes too curious for her own safety. Her duty was to patrol the snowy borderlands and make sure no wild beasts or raiders approached the settlement. Each morning she would climb to the cliff and scan the valley with her binoculars. Usually, she saw nothing but white fog and stone. But today felt different. The sky above the peaks burned faint orange, as if a storm of fire had passed through during the night. Her scanner beeped softly. Something had entered orbit hours ago, a large object, metallic, descending fast before vanishing from radar. Lyra frowned. She had seen falling satellites before, but this path was wrong. It came from deep space, not from their own network. She slid down the slope, her boots sinking into fresh snow, following the direction of the signal. The air was thin, her breath turning to white clouds. After an hour of walking, she noticed tracks. They were not from any animal she knew. The footprints were deep, round at the heel, and pressed in a pattern of heavy boots. Each step had melted a thin layer of snow, as if the being carried heat within. Lyra crouched and touched the edge of one print. The snow was warm. Her heart began to race. No Vyari wore boots like this, and no machine had left these marks. She followed the trail carefully, one hand on her pulse rifle, her eyes alert. The footprints led down into a narrow valley filled with fog. At first she heard nothing but the wind. Then, faintly, a cough, weak, human-like. Lyra froze. Slowly she stepped forward. A shadow moved ahead, half hidden by mist. When it stumbled closer, she saw a tall figure wrapped in a torn suit of armor, unlike any design of her people. The helmet was cracked, the visor dark. The figure fell to its knees and struggled to breathe. Instinct overcame fear, and Lyra ran forward. "Stay still," she said, though her voice trembled. The figure lifted its head. Through the broken visor she saw eyes not black or scaled like hers, but soft brown, tired yet bright. Flesh, not shell. Skin, not scales. For a long second, she forgot to breathe. It was a human. The word flashed through her. Mind like thunder. She knelt beside him. "You can understand me?" she asked. The man nodded weakly. His lips moved. "Please, air." Thinner than expected. She quickly removed his helmet and attached an oxygen pack from her own gear. His breathing steadied. Even through exhaustion, he tried to stand. "You should rest," Lyra said. Trying to hide her shock. "I can't," he murmured. "I need to find survivors." She blinked. "Survivors? There is no crash nearby." "You're the only one." The man closed his eyes, pain crossing his face. "Then I am the only one left." By evening, Lyra had brought him to her camp. The guards nearly pointed weapons at her when they saw the stranger. Word spread fast. A living human. Scientists and elders rushed to the gates, staring in disbelief. For generations they had told their children humans were extinct. Now one stood before them, pale and breathing. The commander, Varan Kell, confronted Lyra immediately. "You realize what you've done? This could be a trick, a clone, or worse." "He's not a threat," Lyra insisted. "He was injured and alone." "Look at him. Does he look like an enemy?" Voran's cold eyes scanned the man. Name yourself, outsider. The human lifted his chin slowly. Evan Ross, he said, voice hoarse but steady. Commander of the Vigilant Horizon. My ship crashed. I didn't mean to enter your territory. Every alien around murmured. The title commander sounded official, ancient. What species are you? A young technician asked. Evan gave a faint smile. Human, from Terra. The crowd gasped. Some took a step back as if the word itself carried danger. The elders whispered to one another. That's impossible, Varen muttered. Humans died out centuries ago. Their planets were destroyed. Evan's expression turned hard. We didn't die. We learned to survive where others couldn't. Lyra felt a strange chill. She looked at him, the calm, firm way he spoke, the quiet fire in his tone. He didn't seem like a ghost or monster. He looked determined. They placed Evan in a small medical tent. Lyra stayed nearby, partly out of duty, partly because she couldn't stop wondering. She watched him fix his damaged suit using tools she didn't recognize. His movements confident, though his body was weak. His hands were rough, scarred from work, not luxury. Later that night, the power grid of the camp began to fail. The lights dimmed, heaters flickered, and panic rose. The technicians struggled to locate the fault. Lyra heard shouts from the control room and ran inside. Sparks flew from the main generator. Evan, still bandaged, appeared at the door. You'll overload the conduits, he said. You shouldn't be here, Baran barked. Evan ignored him and knelt beside the console. His fingers moved quickly, bypassing circuits and adjusting voltage regulators by feel. Your system is old Terran tech, he explained calmly. You're using the wrong coolant cycle. Everyone stared, confused. Then the lights blinked back to full power. The heaters roared alive, and the alarms fell silent. Evan leaned back, breathing heavily but satisfied. There, he said quietly. You're safe. Varan opened his mouth but said nothing. He simply walked out, leaving Lyra and the engineers speechless. Lyra stepped closer. How did you know all that? Evan smiled faintly. We built these kinds of systems centuries ago. Some things don't change. As he spoke, Lyra saw the flicker of pain behind his calm eyes, not physical pain, but the weight of being the last of his kind. That night she couldn't sleep. The stars above the mountain shone cold and distant. But one spot in the sky seemed brighter than usual, a broken trail of light where Evan's ship had fallen. She went outside and found him sitting near the fire pit, staring upward. You should rest, she said. He smiled softly. I tried. The quiet feels strange after everything. Lyra sat beside him. What was it like? Your world? He thought for a moment. Loud, beautiful, dangerous. We had oceans bigger than this planet and skies that never ended. But we fought too much. When the wars came, we built shelters beyond the rim, places to start again. Some didn't make it. She watched his hands resting on the edge of his broken helmet. So humans still exist? Yes, he said. Just hidden. Waiting for the right time to return? Lyra stared at the flames. The idea filled her chest with strange warmth and fear at the same time. My people always said humans were myths. Gavin laughed quietly. My people said aliens were myths too. For the first time, Lyra smiled back. The sound of his laughter felt different from anything she had ever heard. Light but full of memory. Over the next days, the camp slowly began to accept Evan's presence. Scientists questioned him about old human technology, while soldiers tested his reflexes, half curious, half afraid. He never raised his voice, never acted superior. He simply helped, repairing equipment, clearing snow from solar panels, teaching basic survival tricks. Lyra followed him often, watching how he treated everyone with respect, even those who mocked him. She noticed how he always shared his food, even when he had little. Once, when a child slipped on the ice, Evan caught her before she fell, smiling gently as he helped her up. The small moment made everyone around pause. Still, many remained suspicious. Rumors spread that Evan was a spy or a remnant of an ancient army. Lyra defended him each time. He saved our lives when the power failed, she said firmly. Would a spy do that? But the fear of the unknown is strong. Some whispered that humans brought destruction wherever they went. One evening, the council called a private meeting. Lyra was not invited, but she waited outside the chamber, worried. Voices rose within anger, doubt, fear, then silence. When the doors opened, Varan emerged, face cold. The council will decide his fate tomorrow, he said, and walked away. Lyra rushed inside. Evan sat alone at the table, calm as always. They want to send you away, she said quietly. I expected that, he replied. Fear is natural. I don't blame them, but it's not fair. She said, you helped us. He looked at her gently. Sometimes help isn't enough. You can't make people trust you overnight. You'll freeze out there if they exile you. He smiled again, that quiet, tired smile. I've lived through worse. For a moment neither spoke. The lamps flickered, and snow drifted past the window. Finally, Lyra whispered, if humans are really out there, will they come for you? Evan looked toward the stars. Maybe if they find the signal. What signal? I activated a distress beacon before my crash. It's weak, but if anyone's still listening, they'll know I'm alive. Lyra's heart raced. She imagined what that meant. Ships, more humans, legends, walking out of the sky. The next morning, Lyra woke to a strange quiet in the camp. The wind had stopped, leaving the valley still and frozen. The snow reflected a pale light, making every shadow sharp. Normally, the camp would be filled with movement, scouts patrolling, children laughing, elders discussing plans. But today, a tension hung in the air. Everyone seemed to sense the same thing. The humans' presence was changing their world. Even before they had fully returned, Lyra pulled her coat tight and walked to Evan's tent. He was already awake, tending to minor injuries from his crash. His hands moved with careful precision, cleaning cuts, wrapping them, checking bruises. Even after all the chaos, he had remained calm and focused, the way humans had been described in old legends. Lyra watched silently, marveling at his quiet strength. You're up early, she said softly. Evan looked up and smiled. Sleep is difficult when you know change is coming. Lyra frowned. Change. He nodded. When humans return, things will not be the same. Not for your people, not for this planet. She shivered, unsure whether to feel fear or excitement. Do you mean your people? Yes, he said. There are still humans out there. Not many, but we survive. And now that I am here, some will come looking. Lyra followed him outside. The valley stretched like a silver ocean, cold and silent. For the first time, she noticed subtle details she had never seen before. Faint tracks in the snow, patterns made by the wind, signs of life under the frozen surface. She realized that Evan's arrival had already left a mark on the world around them. The camp leaders gathered soon after. Varan Kell, the commander, still wore a cautious expression. The elders spoke in low tones, debating whether to keep Evan, study him, or send him away. Some whispered that humans were dangerous, others that they could bring knowledge and protection. Lyra stayed near the edge, listening and watching. She could sense the unease, but also curiosity. Even those who feared him couldn't ignore his quiet authority and calm intelligence. Evan spoke softly to the council. I did not come here to fight or take anything from you, he said. I only seek help and offer help in return. Your people have survived harsh worlds for centuries. I respect that. But your systems, the energy, the water, the defenses, they can be improved. I can help. A murmur ran through the council. The elders whispered to one another. Voran's eyes narrowed. Why should we trust you? You are a myth. You are a story our people told to frighten children. I may be a myth to you, Evan replied calmly, but I am real, and I survived. That is proof enough that humans endure. Lyra noticed a change in the atmosphere. Even the guards who had been suspicious now watched him with interest rather than hostility. The scientists, too, were clearly impressed. He had a presence that could not be ignored, not because he demanded it, but because he inspired it naturally. Later that day, a sudden alarm echoed through the camp. A storm had begun to form on the northern ridge, moving faster than anyone expected. The winds howled like wild beasts, snow whipped violently across the valley, and the first thin sheets of ice began to crack. Lyra ran to the command center. Heart pounding, Evan was already there, analyzing the situation with rapid calculations, his fingers moving over instruments that looked alien even to her trained eyes. "The storm will hit full force in 30 minutes, he said. "Your defenses are weak. If we don't act, half the camp could be buried." The commander barked orders, but his words were slow and unsure. The engineers scrambled, trying to follow directions. Then Evan spoke, his voice sharp, calm, and full of certainty. "Move the tents to the sheltered canyon. Seal the generators and reinforce the walls. Lyra, take the scouts to check the ridge lines." Now, Lyra nodded, adrenaline flooding her body. She had never heard a human speak like this, firm yet respectful, commanding without arrogance. She ran to organize the scouts, her mind racing. As the storm hit, the wind screamed through the valley like a living thing. Snow drifted like waves in a frozen sea. Lyra and her team struggled to secure the tents, but the cold was biting and visibility dropped to nearly nothing. Then she saw Evan moving through the blizzard as if the storm were nothing. He guided the workers, lifted heavy panels, and reinforced walls. He shouted calmly over the wind, his voice cutting through the chaos. The Veyari people watched in awe. Here was a creature they had believed extinct, leading them, protecting them, not out of duty, but because he chose to. Hours later, when the storm finally passed, the camp was damaged but standing. Few lives were lost, and even the animals had survived. The elders were quiet, exchanging glances. Varan approached Evan, a mixture of respect and confusion in his expression. "You saved us," he said simply. Evan shrugged lightly. "I only did what anyone would do if they could," but Lyra knew it was more than that. Humans were not just strong. They were resilient, intelligent, and willing to face danger without hesitation. And Evan was a perfect example of that. Over the next days, Lyra spent more time with him. He showed her small ways to improve efficiency in daily tasks, ways to purify water faster, repair equipment without spare parts, and even make the generators more resistant to storms. He shared stories of human ingenuity, of building shelters on harsh worlds, surviving impossible odds. She began to feel a connection with him, a deep respect that grew each day. He was unlike anyone she had ever met, calm yet daring, strong yet gentle. And she realized something she had never admitted even to herself. She trusted him more than anyone in her own tribe. Then one evening, as the twin moons of Threx Prime rose in the sky, a faint signal appeared above the mountains. Lyra noticed it first, a distant glimmer, moving fast through the dark sky. She ran to Evan. "Look," she cried. He followed her gaze, eyes narrowing. "That's not alien," he said softly. "It's human." Within minutes, the signal grew brighter. Ships appeared, sleek and dark, with glowing engines cutting through the night sky. The insignia on the hull was unmistakable, the mark of the Terran Union. Long thought lost to history, the camp erupted in shock. Aliens ran to the ridgelines, pointing, shouting, frozen between fear and wonder. The human ships descended gracefully, landing in a cleared valley nearby. Hatch doors opened and armored humans stepped out, disciplined and alert, scanning the camp with precision. Evan stood beside Lyra, calm but alert. "These are my people," he said quietly. "They've come to find me." The soldiers approached him and saluted. "Commander Ross, we thought we had lost you," their leader said. Evan nodded, his expression steady. Then he turned to Lyra. "Your world will not stand alone anymore," he said. "Humans will help protect it, if you allow us." The elders stared at him, mouths open. Voran's expression was unreadable, caught between fear, admiration, and disbelief. The camp's children looked on wide-eyed, some whispering myths under their breath. Lyra stepped closer to Evan. They are real," she said softly. "Yes," he said. "Real and alive. and they've survived longer than anyone could imagine. The human captain spoke again. Commander, we've brought supplies, medical teams, and engineers. If the VRE will accept our assistance, we can begin. Lyra looked around at her people. Some were still cautious, others were curious, and a few seemed ready to resist. But she knew the right choice. She took a step forward. "We accept," she said. "Help us." Evan smiled faintly, pride and relief showing in his tired eyes. "Then let us begin." Over the following days, the humans worked alongside the Veari. They repaired the camp's defenses, improved the energy grids, and shared knowledge of survival and strategy. Lyra watched carefully, learning from them, amazed at the ease with which humans adapted to alien environments. They were resourceful, precise, and courageous. Every legend she had heard about them was true. Yet even more impressive in reality, in the evenings, Lyra and Evan would walk through the camp, observing the interactions. Lyra noticed how the Veari began to trust the humans, seeing their actions rather than their appearances. Slowly, fear faded, replaced by curiosity and admiration. One night, under the glow of the twin moons, Evan spoke quietly to Lyra. "I never expected to find anyone who believed in us after all this time," he said. "You're alive," she replied. "That is proof enough. And you've already changed everything here." He nodded, his gaze turning to the distant mountains. "Humans were never gone. We were hidden, surviving in silence. Now we've returned, and this is just the beginning." Lyra felt a thrill she could not explain. For centuries, she had believed humans were myths, legends, stories to frighten children. Now, standing beside Evan, she knew the truth. Humans were real, alive, and powerful in ways her people could not yet imagine. Far above, the stars blinked, as if signaling that a new era had begun. Lyra realized that her world, her life, would never be the same. And in her heart, she knew that Evan Ross was not just a survivor. He was a symbol of hope, courage, and the incredible strength of a species once thought extinct. And this was only the beginning.